Miss your connecting flight. Who's missed a flight? Sis. Taking a trip can be very, very stressful. We've been on a trip as a church over the last few weeks. We've been on this journey to generosity. As I've outlined every week, and I'll recap just briefly, as I've outlined every week, generosity is about more than money. Understood correctly, generosity is a way to order our lives. It's a way to view the world. It's a lifestyle. And then I've made this statement, and I stand by it, that for the Christian, generosity is a divine calling. Graham spoke about calling last week, and I think he handled a very tough topic extremely well. But this idea of us being called to something, I think, is important. We will answer for how we've gone about our lives, how we've walked in the calling that God has put for us. And I want to put it to you that one of the things God calls his people to is generosity. This has been our key text during this series. The world of the generous gets larger and larger, and the world of the stingy gets smaller and smaller. That's from Proverbs 11, verse 24. This 3-week series has been an invitation to live in a larger reality, because that's what generosity does, as this verse says. Generosity, having a generous disposition in life, positions us to live in a larger and exciting and an expansive reality. I'm going to say that again because I really want you to get it this morning. We're ending this series today. This decision to embark on a journey to generosity, it opens up from God's side the door for us into a life that is exciting and expansive and getting larger, as opposed to one that is getting smaller and restrictive. The journey to generosity has to, like all journeys, have the right start. And that's where this whole mingle question came from. Otherwise, our journey to generosity is over before it even begins. Right at the outset, the journey to generosity requires us to shift from one mindset to another, which is from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset. And here's the way I've defined those two. A scarcity mentality can be captured in this sentence. We live with the sense that there will never be enough. We view life, we view other people, we view opportunities and circumstances with the mindset that there will never be enough. At some point, we're going to be found wanting. An abundance mentality views life through these lenses. There will always be more. There's always going to be a way that there will be enough, and there will always be more. If you want to go on the journey to generosity, you have to allow God to shift your mind from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset. I concur with many of you that that's not an easy journey. For many of us here, we've been conditioned through the families we grew up in, through the teachings we've received, and maybe through hardship. We've been conditioned to have a scarcity mentality. I'm not going to pretend that's not the case. I'm not going to pretend you just decide today that it's over and it's over. It can be a long journey, as most spiritual journeys are, to get over this thing. But I do think a decision starts us down that road. And the decision I'm calling you to is to say, God, I want to be delivered from a scarcity mindset. And I want to embark on a journey to generosity. And in order to do that, I have to begin to have increasingly an abundance mentality. You with me? That's what we've covered so far. I believe that this journey to generosity starts there, and then what I've done is I've taken a big topic. Guys more brilliant than me have written thick books on living a generous life. I'm much more gifted than they are, so I've managed to bring it down into 3 20-minute sermons. But again, enough about me. I've tried to distill it down into 3 biblical truths that I think if we believe and embrace, we will go on a journey to generosity. The first one was this: we have to settle the issue that God is in fact abundant. I've used the Bible and some examples from life to show that our Father has a track record of abundance. The journey to generosity starts with a clear, personal, and heartfelt conviction that God is abundant, that his resources are not limited in any way, shape, or form, but that he is over and above all things, and he is by nature an abundant God. Once you settle that, then we move on to the second biblical truth, which is that his abundance reaches to me. The thinking there and the topic was that our Father supplies abundantly. And the text that I used, somewhat paradoxically, was that Jesus said we should pray to our Father and ask him for our daily bread. And it is a paradox because it sounds like that is a scarcity mentality. Just enough for today. And then hopefully you journeyed on that sermon with me. If you weren't here, you should listen to it. It was the idea that in fact that is a position of great abundance, to have a God who promises to supply for us on an ongoing basis what we need. And that in fact is not a scarcity mentality. It is the ultimate abundance mentality, to believe that God will continue to supply. Many of you like this phrase. I'll give it to you again. It's from Dallas Willard. He said, "Today I have God, and he has the provisions. Tomorrow it will be the same." That is the essence of a true godly and sanctified abundance mentality. Today I have God. He has all that I need. And tomorrow it'll be the same. With me? Right, so we'll move on to the third biblical truth that I think will help us on this journey, and that is that his abundance flows through me. So where we're at right now, God is abundant, his abundance reaches to me, and then the last one is that his abundance flows through me. We've been reading Proverbs 11:24, the world of the generous gets larger and larger, the world of the stingy gets smaller and smaller. Here's the next verse in that text. The generous prosper and are satisfied. Those who refresh others will themselves be refreshed. A truly generous person moves beyond merely wanting more of God's abundance and blessing for themselves. And they step into the larger reality of wanting to be a channel of that abundance and that blessing to others. To use this verse, this expression, the generous want to refresh others. Yes, it says they will themselves be refreshed, but that's not the starting point. The truly generous person, yes, wants all of God's abundance. Yes, wants his blessing. But already in their minds, their generous heart is so that I can be a blessing to someone else. And so the next leg of the journey to generosity involves us shifting our focus from merely having enough and making room for others. And that's no small step. You with me? No. Now, you thought the series was going so well. You thought that today we were really going to hit the prosperity bell and ring it properly. But unfortunately, I can't do that. This is the way that I understand a journey to generosity. God is abundant. Yes, his abundance reaches to me. And then thirdly, it is in the heart of God that I be a channel of his abundance and blessing to others and not merely a storehouse. Having experienced his abundance and his ongoing supply, we choose to live with an open hand rather than a closed fist. We choose to help rather than to hoard. Right. Let's break the ice. If you're married here, won't you, if your spouse is a hoarder, point at them even now and say, you need to listen to this. Right, you'll face the music on the way home. The idea is this, folks. We transition from wanting to hold on because holding on cuts us off from fresh provision. And we choose to live our lives with an open hand. In other words, God can give and we can give. And when we get into that spin, into that cycle of life, I believe that we're a long way in the journey to generosity. There's a readiness to give. I hope that phrase sticks in your heart like it has in mine while I've been preparing. A truly generous person has a readiness to give. And we'll get to later what that looks like and how that pans out practically. But I want to read to you the story of a little boy in the Bible who for me he's the poster boy for a generous mindset. Because it doesn't matter how much you have, it matters about having a generous posture. Let me read this to you. It's not going to come up on the screen. Just hear the text. Many of you have heard it before, but now hear it with today's framework. It's in John chapter 6. Just listen. After this, Jesus crossed the Sea of Galilee, also known as the Sea of Tiberias, and a huge crowd kept following him wherever he went, because they saw his miracles and he was healing the sick. Then Jesus went up into the hills and sat down with his disciples around him. Jesus soon saw that there was a great crowd of people climbing the hill. They wouldn't let him go, and they were looking for him. So he turned to Philip and he said to him, "Philip, where can we buy bread to feed all these people?" "It's Black Friday," Philip said. "We can't get anywhere near a shop." He was testing Philip, for he already knew what he was going to do. Philip replied, "It would take a small fortune even on this weekend to feed them." Then Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up, and he said this, "There's a young boy here with 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. But what good is that with this huge crowd?" "Tell everyone to sit down," Jesus ordered. And so all of them, and the Bible gives us some data, the men alone numbered 5,000 people. They sat down on the grassy slopes. Then Jesus took the loaves and he gave thanks to God, and he passed them out to the people. Afterwards, he did the same with the fish, and they all ate until they were full. "Now gather the leftovers," Jesus told his disciples, "so that nothing is wasted." There were only 5 barley loaves to start with, but 12 basketfuls were filled with the pieces of bread the people did not eat. So obviously Jesus is the star of the story. Yes, he's the hero. But this little boy, his story needs to be told. What an unusual level of generosity to take his 5 loaves, 2 fish, obviously the son of a helicopter parent. You're not going out without food. I don't know what that says about the rest of the parents or the rest of the. I don't know what it says about 5,000 men, none of whom arrived with anything to eat either. But the reality is, there's a readiness to give in this little boy that speaks of a generosity that I want to emulate. I want to have that kind of open hand. He doesn't go, "There's a lot of people here with no child. Good thing I got my 5 loaves and 2 fish." He doesn't set up a stall. Much to many of you's amazement, how does he not? Supply and demand, the market is right there. He has this generous posture. He has a readiness to give that is pure, that is full of faith, and that Jesus blesses and uses remarkably. I wonder if that little boy went on to live a life of increasing generosity. Once you've had an experience like that, he must have thought the next day when he went out with his 5 loaves and 2 fish and could only feed himself, what a downer that must have been. Folks, the journey to generosity starts with a posture, not with an amount. It really matters that we get this right. A little boy exists as the example for us of how this works. It's been said, this phrase, it's a bit of a cliche, a Christian one-liner. I don't really like those, but this one I want to give you because I think it does make a point. It's been said that if God can get it through you, he will get it to you. And if you will go away and think about that in the week, if God can get it through you, he will get it to you. I think there's some truth in it. Because make no mistake, God is abundant. Make no mistake, his abundance reaches to us. But when his abundance, he knows, flows unchecked, and unfettered through us, I think we can position ourselves probably for increasing flow from the Lord into our lives, because He knows it's just going to go where He wants it to be. You with me? Of course He wants us to benefit. Those who refresh others will themselves be refreshed. You're not, people have used this analogy, you're like a hose. Maybe you've heard a sermon preached like this. That's what we are. God is the source, and we are the hose, and there is the need. Yeah, I don't really like to think of myself as a hose, because that's just like a dead thing. I also require His blessing. My faith requires the stimulation of God's provision into my life, of God's sometimes miraculous provision. He wants to shape me whilst using me. I'm not just a hose, and you are not just a hose. Now, I get where the analogy comes from. It's the idea that we channel God's blessing to others. We're all up to speed with that, yes? But I want to say this. Those who refresh others will themselves be refreshed. You're never going to be left shortchanged for displaying a generous posture towards others. You will not outgive God. You're not going to find yourself, ought not to, miserable in that process. The world of the generous gets larger and larger. The world of the stingy gets smaller and smaller. You with me? Good. Can we move on? Right. We're moving on pretty swiftly. Running out of content here. I'll make up some stuff as we go. I wanted to share with you. I'll just speak more slowly. Here are 10 practical ways that you can show generosity. I applied my mind to this. Kirsten always says this to me. She always says, "You're the best preacher I've ever heard." And then she follows it up with this: you need to give us take-home tools. Like, practically, what does this mean? And so this week, I've got 10 things. I'm making up for a few years of not doing this by giving it all in one go. Here are 10 practical ways you can show generosity. Give a fair, even a good tip, and do so with a good attitude. If you go to a restaurant, 10% is the minimum. You're not paying your tithe. That's different. It is a good thing to tip, and to tip well. I would say at least 10%. Yes? Maybe you're thinking this morning, I didn't come to church to get advice on this. Well, I need to tell you that the journey to generosity has to have practical traction in our lives. Otherwise, it's a philosophy we decide to embrace or not embrace. These are some of the ways it works out. Give a good tip and do it with a good attitude. Don't throw your money at the car guard. Don't do a silent fist pump when you manage to sneak away without paying. It's not a generous heart. I know, because I've done it. I feel like I beat the system. Right. Tip well, tip with a good attitude. Learn the waiter's name. Take an interest in their story. Generosity, remember, is more than money. It's taking an interest in someone else. The second thing, and this one, some of you are really going to hate, but I'll give it to you anyway. Don't always haggle for the best price. Some of you are more gifted in this. Some of you, what I'm saying, you sound like this cannot be in the Bible. Every now and then, just don't haggle. You know what haggle is? Every now and then, show a generous heart and don't negotiate the price. This particularly pertains when you're trading in the informal sector. If you go to the beachfront and you're buying an I Love Durban hat, and you're able to bargain that lady down, just let that sit with you. Like, what is that? Are we is that we're on the same page? Let's not always haggle. Sometimes just be generous. Just pay full price, pay extra. You cannot believe I just said that. Well, sometimes generosity flies in the face. Just don't haggle. I'm not saying all the time. Don't be a chop. You're going to be like a sitting duck for the rest of your life. Don't be that. But every now and then just go like, no, you know what? Just pay full price. It's countercultural. I'm not good at haggling. So we've got some extra. So I'm not good. Kirsten, very good. Her dad's Scottish, runs strong in her veins. So when we went to Russia and flew through Turkey, and we went to a market there. Now, some cultures, haggling is it's almost an insult not to negotiate. And that certainly was the case in Turkey. So we bought a little ring, just inexpensive. And the prospect to Kirsten that I would pay the full price was just, like, it was staggering. Like, I think she honestly thought of maybe just leaving me there. Like, there's just no hope for you whatsoever. Mostly, I will tell you, because she wanted to buy more Turkish delight to bring home. Right, so don't always haggle. Thirdly, try this one once in a while. Pay for someone else's stuff. If you're at the grocery store and the guy in front of you, and you're buying 3 trolleys full, and the guy in front of you is buying a loaf of bread or a pie and a Coke, firstly, you can gain some time. Just add it to mine. He heads off. Secondly, folks, it does something good in your heart. Pay for someone else's stuff. If you really want to freak someone out, when you're at the toll gate, pay for the car behind you. And then take off fast and see if they can catch you, to try and see who it is or what kind of weirdo does that. You can have some fun with generosity. Right, so those are some money-related ones. I want to just change gears slightly. If you want to be a generous person, greet people warmly and smile. I know this sounds like Oprah, you're expecting a gift under your seat or something, but truly a generous spirit, it has to pervade every facet of our lives. If you're by nature a more grumpy person, like me, you have a hostile, resting face, you have to be deliberate about treating and greeting people warmly. And I will say this, like, just do it. We can't just be generous when it comes to giving and miserable the rest of the time. It's a posture in life. Greet people warmly, learn their name. You'll forget it before you're done with the transaction, but it's a start. Next thing, be generous when you give someone praise. Be generous when someone else deserves credit for something that's happened. Maybe this more in a work situation. Be happy to have the credit go to someone else, not always having to draw it into yourself. That's not a generous posture. That's a bit of a stingy. And the world of the stingy gets smaller and smaller. You with me here? So when it comes to giving praise, giving credit, or saying thanks, be generous. Now, we're not talking about flattery. Flattery is horrible. It's insincere. But just be generous with your words. Everybody up to speed? Can I keep going? Next one. When you're listening to someone, listen to understand and not to respond. One of the most generous things you can do is to listen well when someone is speaking. To listen to understand is to seek to understand what that is that they're on about. Ask questions. It requires a generous heart. A mean-spirited heart says, I think I've heard what you said, and here's what you need to know. And we shoot with a flurry of information back at them. That's not really a generous posture. With me? Right, we draw to a close. Some of these are more painful than others. If you really want to be a generous person, you can give a gap in traffic. Just in the same way, you don't have to haggle for every deal. You don't have to block every gap in traffic. You are going to be okay, and they are going to be okay. You're not weak. You're not pathetic. You're not less of a man. You're not a a waste of skin. You're not a part of the problem. You're none of those things for giving someone a gap. You just lacquer. Just relax. Be generous with the way you drive. Yo. Okay. You with me? Yeah. I told you some of these are fun, some of them are not. The next thing, be hospitable with what you currently do have. It's one of the failings to think, well, when I've got more, then I'll be generous. Be generous with what you currently do have. Your home, your car, your things. Be generous. If you can be a blessing to someone, do it. Number 9, serve wholeheartedly in a worthy cause. Give away some of your time and your talents to an organization. There are many organizations in our community and indeed here at the church that rely on the strength of volunteers. This church most definitely rests and flourishes on the strength of the volunteer base. So if you're not serving, come and serve. Come and be generous with your time and your talents. Number 10, and I leave you with this. Be generous in the way that you sow seed. We're just going to circle back around to money for a moment. Be generous in the way that you sow financial seed. As you can see, the building project is, it's almost there. And if the price for kidneys is still what it was the last time I checked, well, no. Folks, I need you to know this, and Gustav's here, and I don't see Murray right now, but as a leadership team, we took this project on really believing that it's going to do something for us in the life of the church. And financially, we will settle the bills. So that's a wonderful thing. And I can't give you an accurate facts and figures. I could probably do that. Maybe I'll do that next week at the We Are Family. I'll share with you a bit about that. But I need you to know it's not about that. What I'm sharing this whole series on generosity was not teeing you up for that. We're done. We can pay those bills. We will pay them in the week, and we'll all be done. The point I'm making is that opportunities arise to sow seed into soil, and then those opportunities pass. This building was put up on the faithfulness of many. That opportunity passed. We closed that. Boom, boom, boom. All wrapped up. Now we've done that project, and by the end of the year, that project will be totally finished, and that season for sowing seed into that soil will have passed. When you sow, think generously. The Bible says, he who sows generously reaps generously. He who sows sparingly will also reap sparingly. Let me close with this. 2 quick warnings if you want to go on a journey to generosity. Number 1, be careful of the company you keep. Be careful of the company that you keep. The world of the stingy gets smaller and smaller. And fair warning here, small thinking, scarcity-minded people can be toxic on your journey to generosity. Be careful about the company you keep. I was thinking about this whilst walking the other day. So the phrase I wanted to say was, hang around or include in your circle generous people. And I thought that's a very practical, wise kind of thing to say. Then I thought of this. If you are scarcity-minded and you get told to hang around generous people, you go, of course, because they are generous. They are willing to give, and I am willing to receive. And so the circle is complete. What a wonderful thing. That's certainly not what I'm saying. I'm saying hang around generous people to catch some of their generous spirit. I think this stuff really matters. And lastly, and I'll read a passage of scripture because the Apostle Paul said it better than I could. But the second practical tip on living a generous life is as follows. Paul says to Timothy, command those who are rich in this present world not to be arrogant, nor to put their hope in wealth, which is so uncertain, but to put their hope in God, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. See, those who refresh others will be refreshed. And then he says this, command them to do good, and to be rich in good deeds, and to be generous and willing to share. In this way, they will lay up treasure for themselves as a firm foundation for the coming age, so that they may take hold of the life that is truly life. 2 practical tips. Be careful who you hang around with. And secondly, remember, facilitating a generous heart does have repercussions not only in this life, but in the next. I believe that to be true. When we are generous here, God takes note, and our hearts are shaped for generosity, and it does affect not our eternal destination. No, it doesn't affect that. That's by the blood of Christ. We are redeemed, we are restored, we are forgiven, and our eternities are secure. But the level to which we embark on a journey of generosity, I do believe, will ring on into eternity. That's what that says, and the Bible teaches it repeatedly. Everybody fine? Can I close in prayer? Great. The journey to generosity requires us to personally and wholeheartedly embrace three sequential biblical truths. God is abundant, His abundance reaches to me, and His abundance flows through me. I do believe those three are sequential. He is abundant. His abundance reaches to me. Lastly, His abundance reaches and flows through me. Let's pray. Loving Father, I've done my best to handle a big topic with honesty, with sincerity, and in a helpful way. My prayer, Lord, and this is a big one, is that every person who has endured this sermon series, that every person who has endured it, listened to it, perhaps engaged enthusiastically with it, that every single one of us would have moved forward in our journey to generosity. We wouldn't become defensive about our position. We wouldn't seek to explain, but that we would open our hearts to you, God, who is abundant, and to your willingness to be abundant to us. And then lastly, in our willingness to help and not to hoard, to live with an open hand and a readiness to give. We want to be in that space. I want to be in that space. And I pray you would make us a church that is increasingly generous, a church that lives in a larger and a larger world, that is exposed to a larger reality and all of the excitement and expansion that that brings. Make it so, please, God, we ask in Jesus' name. And everyone who wanted that to be true of them and of this church said a hearty amen.